Tales of Vesperia was originally released in 2008 as an Xbox 360 exclusive to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of the Tales series coming to North America. Just over a year later, an enhanced PlayStation 3 port was released exclusively in Japan, featuring a plethora of additional content. Now, just in time for its own 10-year anniversary, Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition has been ported up to the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC, complete with all the additional content that was never released overseas. But is this remaster and the additional content worth picking up? Let's find out. This review and the related footage is based on a physical retail copy of the game for the PlayStation 4.
You should thank me. I'm giving you some extra practice.
The original Tales of Vesperia was a love letter to everything that made the Tales series so beloved. Where other JRPGs like Final Fantasy sought to reinvent themselves and the genre at large, Tales of Vesperia instead chose to reaffirm all the elements that fans had come to expect from a Tales game. The end result was a very fine-tuned and intense JRPG that was quite possibly the best game in the entire series. All of that remains true with Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition, as it is ostensibly the same game with a new coat of paint. Definitive Edition does a fine job looking and running quite nicely, boosting the visuals up to 1080p on consoles and adding a 4K option on PC. Unfortunately, Vesperia does not feature any PS4 Pro or Xbox One X enhancements, so console owners will not be able to take advantage of the 4K visuals. But even at 1080p, Vesperia's art style still maintains its charm all these years later, and in-game locales and their accompanying landmarks look better than ever. However, despite maintaining a visually appealing art style, Vesperia is still a 10-year-old game, and that age shows, with shadows and lighting effects being noticeably dated and animations being very stiff by modern standards. This is true for both the in-game animations and the 2D hand-drawn animations seen in Skits, though there is a certain charm to the rudimentary animations seen in the Skits. On Xbox One and Nintendo Switch, Definitive Edition runs at 60 frames per second during combat and 30 frames per second during exploration. On PlayStation 4, the game runs at a relatively solid 60 FPS all throughout. Regardless of platform, however, there are a handful of instances where Definitive Edition will drop frames, including when entering enemy encounters. Should that be a deal breaker? Absolutely not, although players should note that this remaster is not a completely seamless update. The music, however, is still as brilliant as ever, and Tales of Vesperia's score features some of the most beautiful music of any JRPG. Though it may not have any one particular song that stands out as being an all-time classic video game track, the music does what any brilliant score does by not just simply communicating the game's ideas, but rather conveying the game's concepts and sentiments to the player and augmenting the action seen and experienced on screen. From the frenetic battle themes to the title theme itself, which features a serene melody accompanied by very faintly sinister undertones, Tales of Vesperia's soundtrack is the ultimate underdog of the entire game. There are some awkward instances where janky character animations are enacted with only diegetic sound and little to no music playing in the background, but the music itself is brilliant despite these occasional mixing missteps. The gameplay has also aged very well, but certain elements have been updated to keep the combat fresh. As with all Tales games, Tales of Vesperia features a real-time battle system and no random encounters. Enemies appear on the overworld and battles play out the way you want them to play out, with the main focus being on chaining together attacks and creating long combination strings. Alongside your standard attacks are your arts, which come in a few different forms. Battle arts are special moves that drain your TP meter but dole out greater damage. Standard attacks and battle arts can and should be chained together to dish out maximum damage. There's a limit break type system called the over limit, which increases the player's speed and allows for faster attack chaining. During an over limit, players can chain together their standard attacks, their battle arts, and special moves known as burst arts. Burst arts are unique attacks that are chained together with specific battle arts and can only be used during over limits. Finally, there are mystic arts, which are basically your super attacks. New to the Definitive Edition is the ability to adjust the party AI, much like the Gambit system seen in Final Fantasy XII. Each character comes with a few AI presets, and you can create your own as well, so if you want certain characters to target specific monsters, or certain characters to focus mainly on healing arts, you can set that up. I honestly didn't dabble with the AI, as the default AI was plenty good enough for me, but veteran players and or skilled JRPG fans might want to fiddle around with those settings to create a preferred setup. There's also local multiplayer, so if you have friends that like JRPGs or just want to play together, they can take control of one of the party members and fight alongside you during combat. Alongside all those mechanics, there are combat skills, which are tied to specific weapons. While these weapons are equipped, the accompanying skills are automatically equipped to the character, but after gaining enough experience with the weapon, the character will earn the skill for regular use, meaning you can equip a newer, stronger weapon with its own unique skills. However, earned skills must be equipped after the accompanying weapon has been replaced, and each skill earned has an SP cost, meaning you can't just walk around with every skill in the game constantly at your disposal. Skills have a variety of effects, such as increased TP or new techniques like the defensive backstep, and combat skills will become increasingly important as you progress through the story. The interconnection between skills, arts, overlimits, and equipment is the heart of the gameplay, and overall, Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition is incredibly deep and intricate, even compared to other Tales games. The story of Tales of Vesperia is the game's most engaging element. On the surface, it looks like your typical run-of-the-mill JRPG. The world of Terca Lumares contains magical objects known as Blastia, which were created by an ancient civilization. Blastia have a variety of effects, but the main usage of Blastia is creating barriers around cities and towns to protect citizens from monsters. You play as Yuri Lowell, a low-born former Imperial Knight who lives in the lower quarter, which is the slummy area of the Empire capital Zaphias. Eventually, the game ascends into the typical fate of the world, fate of mankind affair, but the slow burn leading up to those moments is incredibly powerful as you interact with those characters on a deeper, more personal level, and get invested in who they are as unique characters, rather than who they are as the quote-unquote heroes destined by fate as seen in other RPGs. Yuri himself is arguably the best protagonist in the Tales series, even now, but the entire cast is full of unique characters with their own goals and ambitions. Skits make their grand return, and it's still astonishing just how many skits there are, even without considering additional content. All skits are fully voiced, and many even have basic animation. While not everybody will like the simplistic nature of the skits in Vesperia, and many may even dislike the basic presentation of them compared to how much everything else has been improved in Definitive Edition, they are an integral part of the game's character and relationship building. The best part about the skits in Vesperia, though, is that they are fully voiced, unlike the long, arduous dialogues in the game's predecessors. With the release of the Definitive Edition, Westerners finally saw new content for Vesperia that was originally only released in Japan. Along with the updated visuals and gameplay refinements, Definitive Edition contains all the DLC from the original release of Vesperia, as well as brand new musical tracks, additional minigames, new boss battles, extra costumes, 2 new playable characters, English and Japanese voiceovers, and new voice work over both previously unvoiced scenes, as well as brand new story content. Honestly, the sheer volume of new and additional content is staggering, so returning fans will have a bunch of meaty new content to sink their teeth into, and fresh-faced Vesperia players will have so much more to discover. The caveat to the new voice work, however, is in the English dub. Everybody in the original cast returns, with the exception of Troy Baker, who voiced the main character Yuri. Any voice work that was present in the original Xbox 360 release of Vesperia is still Troy Baker's voice, but all the newly recorded dialogue is voiced by Grant George. If you listen for it, or if you've been told there are 2 voice actors, then you can hear the difference.
I'm sure it was real tough for you standing around at the ceremony. And it must be nice getting pampered just because your daddy was a knight too, huh?
Yeah? So you're still looking for Ifrit's treasure? I guess that means she'll be fine on her own.
But that's the caveat. If you listen for it, or if you've been told. I certainly noticed, as I've played Vesperia before and I was aware of the different voices and I was listening for it. But my fiancée did not, because she did not know there were 2 different voice actors. Unfortunately, if you feel this change was made for the worse, then you'll have those feelings throughout the entirety of the new voice work. Personally, I like Grant George's work in Definitive Edition. He had great clarity and to me sounded a lot like Troy Baker, even if it was noticeably different. And when it was different, it wasn't bad, it was just different. At times, I actually liked it better than some of Troy Baker's voice work. None of this really detracted from the game for me personally, but some people might find it irksome. The Japanese voiceover does not have this issue, so if you play Definitive Edition in Japanese, you won't have to worry about it. At $49.99, Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition is a well-priced, content-rich game with so much to offer to both returning fans of Vesperia and players who missed it the first time around. Is it a perfect remaster? No. There are a few issues, some larger than others, such as the animation and the new voice work, but none of those things are deal breakers. The gameplay is even further improved over the original release, and the music and story are both still amazing, with the story being bigger and better than ever. Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition is a great game that is as worthy of your attention today as the original game was 10 years ago, and it earns an 8 out of 10. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked the video, please subscribe and click the bell icon to get notifications whenever I upload new videos. For more reviews and other videos, check out the links on screen. I also reviewed Final Fantasy XV Pocket Edition when that came out, so you can check out what I thought of that game if you're interested. Thanks!